Yes, and thank you everybody for having us. There's a whole bunch hi picture. There's a whole bunch of us from Microsoft and Progress and all different .NET adjacent things that have been able to make the trip. So it's very exciting to have us. And if anyone was at Sweetug, which was also partially organized by Jess and Jimmy and Daniel and a bunch of the other great folks here, that was an amazing conference, and I highly recommend it for next time. So, good, cool, thank you. I'm the first one of the day. I'm just barely awake, and I have a flight in 4 hours. So we'll see how this goes. Today we are going to kick off .NET Front End Day with the ultimate cross-platform developer experience of Visual Studio 2022 and .NET MAUI. The cool thing about this talk is even if you aren't doing MAUI, a lot of the things will still apply. I will try and call them out as I see them. I can't promise I will call them all out, but I am a PM on the MAUI team. So of course I care mostly about MAUI stuff, and that's what my demo is going to be. My focus is really on productivity, not just in VS Mac, but also the cloud and other things that you do with your stuff. I'm a very lazy coder. I write very lazy software. I like to build tooling because I do not like to do it myself. I am from Boston, Mass, which is where I will be flying back to this afternoon. So if you don't understand anything I'm saying, please let me know, and I will speak slower and with more consonants that I usually drop. I am here with one of my counterparts, David Ordenow, who will be presenting later this afternoon. He really focuses on the SDK stuff. And so I put not David up here because people put us together in their brains, but actually we're quite opposite. We have very different priorities, which is why we work so well together. And the cool thing about my job is that if everything I worked on was perfect, you wouldn't need to know I existed. But since you know I existed, that means, or since you know I exist, that means there is room for improvement. And so I'm always happy to hear people's feedback. Oh yeah, so this is a cool picture of me. This is not what I look like. That's my doorbell camera, which my husband has started collecting screenshots of my doorbell camera pictures and posting them on Instagram. And it's really quite something, but this is really what I do look like in real life. So we are going to jump right in to some demos. Full disclosure, so this little laptop here has served me very well for the year or so I've had it until Monday or so, Sunday in the airport. And I went to open Visual Studio and it said .NET HostFX could not be found. And I said, what does that mean? And after multiple Visual Studio repairs, I realized I must have just screwed something up so desperately with internal bits that it was too far gone. So this is a freshly repaved version of Windows. What's cool about that is that everything I'm showing you is not at all faked because I literally just installed Windows on this yesterday. What's not cool about that is I don't know what sneaky cool things I've set up in my free time to make my demos look super snazzy. So this is going to be a little bit of an adventure together. Quickly, we will start Zoom it. Hopefully this just installed correctly so that I can actually zoom things. Well, my poor computer. It's okay. We're almost done. We also have to change the color to pink. That's the most important part. How do I do that? Oh, yes. Change the pen color and then type P. Zoom. Control 1. Ready? Control 1. Zoom it. Hello? Interesting. All right. Zoom. Okay. P. Draw. Yay. Okay, that worked. So let's hop right in. So, anyone here unfamiliar with .NET MAUI? Okay, a couple people. Great. So, .NET MAUI is Microsoft and .NET's cross-platform toolkit for Android. Hold on, it's right here. Android, iOS, macOS, and Windows. So what's cool about MAUI is you can write your code in .NET, in XAML if you want to use XAML, and C# if you want to use just C#, and run that in all 4 platforms. And so the way to get started with MAUI is, I'll show you, very easy. Sneaky, cool trick. If you ever need to install something in Visual Studio that you didn't already have installed, you can just hit modify in the installer. It's going to get things ready as it does forever. And then there is literally a workload that just says .NET MAUI right here, .NET Multi-Platform App UI. And you check it off and it gives you everything you need to start developing, not just for the Windows target, but also for Android and iOS on a Windows machine. Any Mac developers here? People who like to use their Mac? Yeah, there we go. Nice. Okay, a bunch of you. I am not going to show my Mac today just because that would have involved me unpacking and setting also up my Mac at 8:45 this morning, and I could not. But this is also very similar on the Mac and Visual Studio for Mac. You can do Windows development from Windows, Mac development from Mac, but Android and iOS in both places. Make sense? Yeah? So to get started with Maui, you just want to make a new project. Very easy. And there are templates. There is a Maui app. There's Maui Blazor, which Gerald, who is also on our wonderful team and eating a sandwich right now, so don't look at him. I say as I point at him, who he will talk a little bit about Maui Blazor. So will Sam, I believe. Yeah. And Signal R and all the cloud things that I try to ignore because I'm so busy looking at Visual Studio. And what's cool about that is that since many of you are new to Maui, we just actually shipped this overview page, which gives you a whole bunch of stuff to get started. Look at that. So now you can just do file new Maui project. I literally just file new Maui app 1, and this pops right up. So you can go and see the documentations we have. I really need to figure out why Zoom it doesn't like me today, but that's okay. Zoom. There's documentation. We have a learning path on Microsoft Learn. So it's literally like a self-guided course. You go, you click through, there's some videos, you watch, you have a good time, you type them in. Our docs, of course, integration into whatever, and then deploying to all the different places, which is what I am going to talk you through and kind of show you right now. Oh, uh-oh. Oh no. All my screens went dark. My computer might be restarting. I hope not. Oh, we're back. We're back. Nice. Good morning. This is a fresh install of Windows. Why is this? It's fine. I do. Okay, thank you. Oh, hello, myself. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Hello, online. All right, Visual Studio. Cool. So, as I said, from Windows, you can get to 3 platforms. You cannot do Mac development on Windows, and you cannot do Windows development on Mac. The reasons for that should make sense. Windows, very easy. It's kind of the default one. You hit F5, it's going to build and deploy your Maui app to your Windows machine. Which, oh, I need to hide my little hide thing. The first time you do it, it takes a few seconds because it has to package it and then build it and then install it on the machine. Every subsequent time gets faster because it's already installed in the machine. So unless you uninstall it, obviously, it's going to be pretty snazzy. Give it a second. It says it's running. See, this is the profiling tools we have on the side here. So it will show you if you're doing Windows debugging, the CPU usage, the memory usage. You can set your breakpoints and inspect all the things from there, which is really nice. And there we go. Good morning. Good morning, computer. I think my computer needs coffee more than I do. Cool. And that is the file new Maui app, Hello World. And you click it, and then it tells you how many times you clicked it. Very, very complicated. Not at all. It's super simple, but yeah, this is the template. It does respect theming so that my computer is in dark mode. So this is dark. If I switch my computer to light mode, we can actually do that. Actually, my computer's really not in a good mood, so maybe I shouldn't be messing around. But let's try. Let's see what happens. Color settings. Oh wow, this is slow. It's okay. We'll get there. Light, and it will reflect in the app. Very cool. Just like that. Boom. So that's all built in. File new. Easy peasy. So let's stop running this. Let's talk a little bit about the second least complicated target, which is Android. So in a Maui app, let me do my little manual zoom it here. Actually, let me see if I can fix this. Zoom toggle, control 1. Did that work? Yay, I fixed it. I'm so smart. In a Maui app here, it's one project. Very nice. And you have a whole bunch of different things going on. You've got your platforms, which is where any platform-specific code lives. Usually, especially if you're new to Maui, you don't need to think about it. Just don't even look. It's just the files that Android and iOS and Windows need to start it up and set permissions and all those things. You have resources, which is where you can put all your images, all your fonts, all those things. Mobile app developers know that for any image you want to put in your app, you have to make about 8 million copies of it in like 8 bajillion different resolutions, and it's really annoying. We just do it all for you. If you stick an SVG or a PNG in there, we size it, we do the right things. You can set your app icon. And then here's really where my code happens. It's all in Maui program, which is my startup file. It tells the app how to initialize and what packages to load in. And then mainpage.xaml, which is all my UI code. And business logic is just in the C# there. Anyone new to .NET here? New to .NET? Cool, welcome. .NET's great. If things don't make sense to you that I'm saying, that is okay. Totally fine. You will learn them. The Microsoft Learn stuff is very helpful. Also, just exposure via this. It took me about 4 years to be able to explain what .NET actually was. I just kept going, it's like a framework, but it's also a language, but it also does Windows, but it also does web. And that's pretty much still the definition. So let's talk Android. We have this thing actually built into Visual Studio, so you don't have to install any of the Android Studio tools, David. David's new thing is that we should get rid of this, but you have to install Android Studio. I disagree. Yeah. Okay. Okay. But as the tooling PM, I don't like to do things. I don't like to install things. So I have this thing that you open. It is called the Android Device Manager. And this is where I can manage all of my emulators, all my Android virtual stuff. You can set all these settings if you so choose. I do not, because most of them I don't know what they mean, and I don't care. But you can choose your device, the processor, the operating system, and it'll go and create it for you. One thing that we did that's actually really nifty is if you switch to Android, and this is called the debug selector, target selector, it depends on who you ask. You can hover over framework, and it will suggest all the different frameworks that are compatible with your app. Or you could switch to Android that way, or you could go into Android emulators, hit Android emulator, and we actually have this nice little walkthrough that may or may not pop up at some point to get you set up with your first Android emulator. I like to show the device manager because that's something that you will use every time. Oh, cool. This is also all new. It used to just pop up with the license accepting dialog over and over and over. You'd have to accept it like 8 times, but we fixed it. So cool. That's all you have to do to get Android. If you are in not Sweden, any of you travel here besides the people I know who traveled here? Okay, cool. There is this very nifty thing called the Windows subsystem for Android. And they are rolling it out to more and more countries. They just got to Germany, the UK, a whole bunch of places, but randomly not Sweden, which I don't make these choices. But you can download the Amazon App Store app, and it brings you an on-device version of Android that actually runs totally natively on the metal. So it is not an emulator. It is native Android running on your device. It's up to the whim of the Amazon App Store for when it goes to other countries, hopefully soon. I know we're working on expanding that, but that is also an option for those of you maybe traveling. I know some people were able to get at work places that it was not allowed yet. I don't know how, and I will not condone that. And then finally, we have iOS. So 2 ways to do iOS deployment on Windows. On Mac, it's really easy because everything goes through Xcode. You have to have it. You got to love it. That's fine. The traditional way that most people do it is they go into this little fella right here, the pair to Mac dialog. You click that. And this is all on our docs, by the way. And I think it's being recorded, I imagine. So you can go back. It's going to ask you, like, are you going to let Visual Studio talk to things over the network? And you're going to say, of course I am. Visual Studio is great and has never done me wrong in my entire life. And it's going to give you the option to go and add something from the network. So it can't find anything right now. So it wants me to type it in manually because my Mac is not on. But what you can do is compare to a Mac over the network and then complete all of your iOS builds remotely. It'll spit it back over to Windows and it will show you the simulator or whatever it is remoted into Windows. So my Mac could be in the closet over there, turned on, ready to roll. I could just pair to it and build and deploy like that. It's pretty nice. But if you don't own a Mac, there are docs for it. Or you can just come to Maddy's Cool Talk. What you're going to want to do is log in with your Apple developer account. And so Apple, the reason you have to do all these runarounds for Apple is because they want you to use Macs to build stuff, which is fair. That's kind of their whole thing. We don't want you to have a Mac and a Windows. all the time, so we make it pretty easy. What you can do is go in and add your Apple developer account. You have to pay $99 a year for it. Mine's about to renew, so I need to remember to do that. Make sure you go in and accept all the licenses that it asks you to accept in the Apple developer portal, and then you can actually connect to it from right in Visual Studio. So this looks scary every time people look at keys and private keys. It's scary. There are docs. It's actually not that bad. You just go to the App Store Connect, and all of these things pop right up for you. And once you add this account to Visual Studio, and again, since I just paid for this machine, and I did not want to try and do any Apple stuff because I'm very worried about breaking this again. It is not set up. You plug your iPhone into your PC, USB, nothing fancy. Excuse me. And then you just hit F5 and the app opens and runs on iOS. No Mac, no anything crazy. We basically send it up to the cloud. We say, hey, this device, this Windows machine is allowed to put an app on this iOS device. And Apple says, okay, and then lets us do it. So very, very helpful. There are some limitations. The one that I noticed the most is that you can't actually change app permissions. You need to have the Mac plugged in because Apple won't let you just like change permissions of your app and then stick it on a phone without them knowing what's going on. Good security. I'll take it. So if you need to start enabling specific permissions, you have to go and do it on the Mac. Also, you can't change your app icon, which is very weird, but I think we know how to fix that. We just have to actually do it. So that's part one. That is deploy everywhere. I'm not even going to hop back into my back into my slides because we're going to get right back into this demo, and I don't want to upset my computer. But I will show you this slide. One of my favorite features of .NET MAUI and many other .NET frameworks, not .NET framework, sorry, .NET platforms we have is hot reload. So we on the MAUI team, the formerly Xamarin team, if anyone was a Xamarin developer, we used to spend a lot of time trying to make builds faster because you would change your code and you would say, all right, change it. Okay, now I have to stop the app, rebuild it, redeploy it, see my change, decide if that was good or not, and then do that whole thing again. And so we made builds pretty fast. And then we were like, we can't really do much more to fix builds. What do we do? Oh, I know. Just stop building. This makes sense, right? So we came up with hot reload. It works with your C#, your XAML, CSS if you're doing web, or if you're doing CSS styling for MAUI. And then there's a whole bunch of nifty tools around it. Most of this stuff works with all of the Windows platforms. And then who's web here? Web developers, Blazor, anything? Cool. You don't need the preview because you have a browser. So you have web tools to inspect it, but you'll see how we've kind of made that easy for client developers. So let's hop in here. Let's run this back on Windows. If I was smart, I would have started this before I started talking to the slide, but I am not, so that's okay. It's going to pop up hopefully a little bit faster than last time because I built and deployed it. We already looked at the diagnostic tools. I'm going to close that because I don't really want to look at it right now. We don't need to look at the stuff down here. Fun facts. Oh, other fun fact. We added left tabs to Visual Studio. People are not excited about this. This is the best thing in the world. I hate those stupid top tabs. I can never see the full file name. And then I have one that's like .xaml and one that's .xaml.cs. And then I click on the wrong ones. No, left tabs for life. And you can resize it. Don't worry. You can also group them by the project they're in and give them colors based on the file extension or the project they're in. So now, look at this. Look. My XAML is light blue. You really can't see it on this TV. My XAML is light blue and my XAML CS is like a green. You can customize those things. But it is really nice and much easier. So the app started. It is here. My little .NET app. Click. This is something called the in-app toolbar. So there's a lot of cool things that you can do in here while you're clicking in your app and inspecting. But the way that I do it now mostly, especially when I'm on one single screen like I am now, is I use this little guy, XAML Live Preview. And what XAML Live Preview does is it is a fancy screen mirror. It screen mirrors your app into Visual Studio. So you can do everything within the IDE. We see this especially useful in the single monitor scenario but also if you're on 2 monitors or you're, like, sharing your screen, and you have stuff on the other monitor and you don't wanna have the app open. So this is not an interactive version of the app. You have to go into the app to click it to change things because this is actually an inspection UI. So if I zoom in, control scroll a little bit, and you'll see when I hover over something like this label, it tells me all of its properties. It tells me where it's defined, what size it rendered as, the font, color, text color, all those things. And if I click on it, magic, it takes me to where in the code it's actually defined. So after I scream about left tabs, I will put them on the top again because it is easier on the single monitor. And then I will also pin live preview, and then I will have to resize it because it was sized for an Android phone, which I am not on. But yeah, click on it. It takes you to where in the app it's defined. And then I can just start changing things. So I can say, hello, .NET front end day. Magic. And it changes. And that's in my actual running app too, right? It's not just magically for this preview. This is just, again, a fancy screen mirror. And I can do more than that. I can go and I can change colors. I can do a whole bunch of stuff. But that is XAML Hot Reload working with live preview. This right here. Say that I am on 2 monitors and I don't want to deal with live preview right now. I can go into my app. I can turn on inspection mode, right? Which is this one, selection mode. You don't get the nice dorners that tell you how big things are, but you can still like click and go to where it's defined in the code. Or you can inspect your UI a whole different way, which is using the live visual tree. Whoa. And the live visual tree is something similar to what you would see in web tools if you are someone who is a web developer, but it shows you the actual visual hierarchy of your app and all of the children. So this page, right? It's a main page of type. It's of type shell, which we'll talk about in a second. It's in a scroll view. Then I have a vertical stack layout with 4 things in it: an image, a label, a button, and another label. Image, label, label, button. And it shows the name of my little button. And then I can click on these teensy weensy little arrows, um, magically go to where in my code it's defined. So super easy. The With the sample app where there's only one XAML page, it's not as fun as when it's something like a huge enterprise app or like a big sample app that's really UI focused and it's popping between all different files and where things are defined. But it still works. It's very cool and very helpful. So another thing you can do. Which one do I want to start with? Let's quickly talk about the accessibility checker. So this is brand new to Visual Studio. We just shipped this in 17.5, which is the current preview. It will be shipping to stable very soon. What you can do with the accessibility checker is run it, and it will tell you major accessibility issues with your application. So the only one that I have here is that the name property of my focusable element is not null. I can imagine that's because the screen reader would probably have to read something. We have these things called semantic properties in .NET MAUI that help screen readers know what to say and when to say them. But this also gives me some other helpful tips. So a UI automation name property that concisely identifies the element would be the right way to fix this. So very cool. The thing I use this the most for is colors. So when I'm doing like text on a background and I'm worried about that not having the right level of contrast, it will do a good job telling me that thing. So that's one thing. Another, XAML binding failures. So if I hit this button, this one, oh my goodness, go away, overview. I'll hit it in the app. If I hit this button, I hover over it, it's going to say binding failures. Who's familiar with MVVM, data binding? Okay, most of you, good. Who has ever misspelled a property and spent way too long trying to figure out what the heck is wrong with your app? Oh, wow, some of you must be amazing because I have done this about 8 million times. XAML binding failures will tell you if your data binding isn't resolving, even if the compiler isn't. You click on it and it tells you where the binding failure is. That's it. That's all you have to do. It just shows right up. There's no data binding in this app because it is very basic. But it's something that I use all the time. One trick for Maui developers is if you bind to your view model in the XAML instead of in the code behind, you actually do get binding completions with like tab. but you don't get that if you do that in C sharp. I don't know why. We have tried to fix it. I do not know. It is a problem beyond the scope of my knowledge, but we will hopefully one day fix it. But it is very helpful. Other cool things about live preview, you can add like vertical lines and rulers, and if you're really designy, Dave is the UI guy. He really does. Like, oh, I need to line this up perfectly. I don't really care. Doesn't bother me. It can be off center. I'll just zoom in. And then the final hot reload I would like to show you of all the hot reloads is, of course, C sharp hot reload. So apps UI, changing UI around, obviously very important. But being able to change your code and then run that without having to stop and rebuild the app is kind of the next step. So this app is really simple. We just have a counter, count plus plus. Even I could write that, and I am a PM. I am going to add that, change it to count plus equals 2. Math. Amazing. I'm going to hit save. Oh, and that's not on because I'm on a fresh machine, which it should be default. I'm arguing about it. There is this fire emoji, fire icon, whatever you want to call it. Briefly, they tried to make it not a fire emoji. I almost burnt down Microsoft's headquarters. I said it is a fire emoji. It is hot and you are reloading. And they were like, okay, she's crazy, so we'll just do what she wants. You can hit this button and it will take all of the changes in your code and spit it over into the running app. You can also do the cool thing that all the cool kids do and check off this hot reload on file save, and then it just does it when you save. The reason we don't do that for everything, we don't make that just like the rule, is because there are people, and many of you may be those people, there is nothing wrong with it, who just frantically save every time you make a code change. And so if we were trying to hot reload every time and your XAML or your C sharp wasn't like sane yet, the app would be very upset with you. So if you are one of those people, make sure this is off. If you are someone like me who writes your code and you're like, this looks good. Okay, I think I'll save it. You can turn this on. This is how I use it. So I'm going to hit save again, just make sure I did it. We are currently in the process of giving this status. So it turns out this bar down here in Visual Studio actually tells you things. This whole little red, mine's pink, right? Because that's my accent color in Windows, which is very nice that it does that now. I didn't know this bar told me anything until about a week ago when the wonderful Visual Studio UX team said, why are you trying to shove the status of hot reload into this teeny 16 by 16 icon when you can put it in the thing that's literally called the status bar that tells you what's going on in Visual Studio right now? And I said, oh, interesting. So like this is actually telling me something, this little cute animation. I knew about the source control thing. I knew that sometimes that ready changes to say like other things and then goes back to ready. But you can actually, like, depending on the extensions, you can add stuff to this. So we're going to put a little fire emoji down here that tells you that your hot reload is done. You're ready to roll. With most apps, especially with Windows, it's super fast. Sometimes when it comes to like debugging to the Android emulator, we have to wait for the Android emulator to like, boom. Okay, now we're good because Android can be slow sometimes. So I hot reloaded it enough, do the demo. Now it's going up by 2, right? Even numbers only. We don't like odd numbers here. Whoa. And then, of course, I can change it back. The tricky thing with .NET Hot Reload, C# Hot Reload, is that you have to re-trigger whatever change you made, right? So if you change things that happen when the page loads, you will have to navigate away and then navigate back to the page, or extend something called the metadata update handler, which I am not going to talk about. I believe, are you doing awesome UI or are you doing your whole like state of Maui thing today? The survivalist thing. The survivalist's guide to .NET MAUI right after lunch for you all to sleep through. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding! Are you going to show metadata update handler? Dave will show it. It's very cool. You can extend hot reload to reload things that wouldn't otherwise be reloaded. So, everyone following? Any questions so far? I'm a little bit more than halfway through. Questions, comments? I should probably pull up Streamer, but it's okay. I'll check after. Yes. Yes. Yes, you should be able to. We just shipped this, so I'm wondering if I just found a bug, because usually this template app doesn't actually show any errors, which I'm concerned about. So I will double check on that, but yeah, it will show you where in the, I think it's supposed to be this, like if you click on it, it will tell you where it is. It also we're adding an icon up here at some point that will show you and, like, you can run it from the in-app toolbar, and it will just say, like, "Boop, boop, 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 boop. These are your issues." Good question. More work for me. Um, okay, and I'll dock this. So, fun facts about Visual Studio. All these windows are very confusing down at the bottom. If you want them to stay, you have to say dock. If you want them to go away, you unpin them and then they auto hide. You do not hit the X button, which is what everyone does, including me. And then they just kind of are there forever and they're gone and you're like, what did I do? So, auto hide is the pin, dock is put them back if they're gone. Cool. What else do I want to show here? I don't know. I've showed a lot of stuff. That's pretty good, right? We've seen a lot of stuff. Let's pop back into the slides. I'm going to hide this because I am not demoing VS Mac because my Mac is somehow in a worse mood than my PC. I'll take a sip of tea. Hold on. Let me move this. So you don't have to hear me slurp. That would be awful at 9:32 in the morning. All right. Everything we just saw was in Visual Studio 2022. There are more things in Visual Studio 2022. There are hours and hours and hours and days of content on that on the internet, and I am not going to do all that for you today. We are currently on 17.5 or 17.4. 17.5 is shipping imminently. Everything I demoed today is in Visual Studio public preview, which is what's going to ship public as 17.5 in stable in just a couple weeks. Some of the things we didn't show live share, which is basically Google Docs editing for also your code. So people can remote in and type things and run things on your machine. And it's really helpful for debugging. IntelliSense and Telecode autocomplete, those things are great. I don't need to demo those because they just happen. And it is 64-bit, and you heard it here first, unless you were also in Cologne, Germany on Monday. Then you heard it here second, and I only think like 2 of you were, so hopefully it's going to be a surprise. There is going to be ARM support for .NET MAUI development coming in the upcoming preview of Visual Studio. So when 17.5 goes to stable, 17.6 comes out in preview, and that preview has ARM support. So it's awesome if you have a Windows ARM machine. There aren't many of those. It's even more awesome if you have an M1 or an M2 Mac and you run Windows in parallels. You can actually download an ARM native Windows image, run ARM native Visual Studio, and build MAUI apps. So very cool. I know a good handful of you were Mac developers too. So of course, let's talk about Visual Studio for Mac. We just finished a couple months ago pretty much fully rebuilding it to run on .NET. So it uses .NET 6 and now 7. And we also rebuilt the entire UI piece by piece. So if you're wondering why it's missing some of the features that you get in Visual Studio for Windows, it's because we spent a lot of time rewriting the whole thing. But it's super snappy, very fast. It's all performance focused. Everything we talk about now with VS Mac is lowering hangs and crashes and all those things. Yes, question. Oh, it is not in preview. I just didn't change the link. Good call, Charlie. Oh, again? Oh, I'm sorry. You need to cut me off, Jimmy. I'm not at all exciting. Okay. Windows. Thank you. Thank you, online person, whoever you are. Thank you. Thank you, Gerald, for telling me. Yeah, I just didn't change the link. Are you kidding? It's the first talk of the day, everybody. All right? You got to bear with me here. For those of you online, by the way, the question was, when does this come out of preview? It is not in preview. I just left the preview link up. You can also get preview versions of VS Mac. They usually have more features, but I should probably just change that to be the regular one. So good call. They also totally redid their Git story, which is very nice. So let's talk about the roadmap of what we're going to do with MAUI tooling in the coming period of time. I would say year, but I don't know if that's actually true. Maybe. First and foremost, you saw that little memory profiler on the side pop up for Windows. We want that to also work for Android and iOS. That makes sense. That's the things we target. And then eventually pull that over to the Mac. All very cool stuff. One of the other things we want to do with profiling is have it look at your UI and tell you if you built your UI in the most efficient way and say, hey, you should actually be using a grid. We're all grid people here. That's what we say. We don't like doing stack layouts inside of stack layouts inside of stack layouts because it's less efficient. So we would like a memory profiler to just tell you that. So that's something we're looking at. Bringing that whole live preview experience over to the Mac that's actually in preview now. Very exciting. Finally, they have XAML hot reload. It has that live visual tree hierarchy on the side. It does not have C# hot reload just yet, but that is also in development. So that's coming over to the Mac really soon for all the workloads. Packaging and publishing. So you have an app, you built it, right? You put your code, it works, you tested it, you have to give it to people. Right now, the best way to do that is through the command line, which is cool if you're a command line person, and is also how you would do it with your CI/CD pipeline if you use DevOps like a person should. But there are many, many instances where you don't want to actually use, CI/CD, or you just want to build like a one-off. You want to test it and release locally. You want to give it to your mom to try without her having to do anything fancy, um, or whoever. My thought is always my mom, because she's like, "Let me see the apps you're building," and then I have to go like plug her phone in and be like, "Here, you can use it now." She's like, "This doesn't do anything." I'm like, "Correct, thank you, mom." Um, so we want to do a better in IDE experience that's just like publish it, get it ready for the Android store, get it ready for the Apple store, get it ready for the Windows store. Here's all the information you need to put in. Here's where all those packages are going to go. Let's stick it into the web for you. So that's something that's being actively worked on. Of course, cloud integration. Who was going to ask me a question about App Center? Anyone? Okay, only one, except for Sam and Gerald, and you guys do not count. We are working on App Center stuff. Thank you for not asking yet, so I can answer it first. We are working on it. It is updated. App Center is the cloud thing for mobile and desktop apps that helps with testing, crashes, and analytics, distributing it, building. We are working on all of those stories, and they will either be updated in App Center itself, or App Center will kick those out to Azure and make them easier in Azure itself, because it is all Azure anyways. Long story short, we're getting there. More to come. The App Center team is doing a lot of work. There is a team that is working on it, which is new. So that's exciting. Hot reload status indicators I told you about. All cool. I would really like it to have a little dot that says there are changes that you could hot reload. And you would be like, whoa, no way. And then you would hot reload it. And then it would say, thumbs up, you're done. And you'd say, oh, okay, cool. That's what I want. This is what I do as a PM. This is what I do. And then finally, this is exciting for those of you who are Blazor hybrid folks. As I had mentioned earlier, the web tools are their own kind of thing in Chrome. We have the live visual tree, we have the live preview, we have hot reload. All of those things should all just work together. They shouldn't be three separate tooling experiences. They should all just exist. So that's another thing, like kind of the unification of all the different ways that people write UI with .NET, and making sure they all play nice in the sandbox together. And then Windows subsystem for Android stuff, which I don't need to talk about because we don't have it here. So if I had infinite time, and I put this up here, not because I am going to do these things, but because I want you to say to me, hey, Maddie, that thing you said in your slide about if you had infinite time is super important to me, and I need you to make the time for that. That is why this is here. Make authentication suck less. There is no nice way to say authentication is awful. I would like to just be able to say right click, add sign on with Google. Bam. And it writes my code for me. I don't know if that's actually possible. Jimmy's laughing because he's like, she has no idea what she's talking about. You're correct. I don't know if that's possible. I would like that. I'm sure there are things we can do to make it easier. I don't know what those things are, but tell me if you also have this problem like me. I would like to be able to do Mac development on my Windows machine and vice versa. I think that would be cool. I don't know how many people actually need that. So again, tell me. I would like everything to work in the cloud, in the VS code spaces when you like pull things out from your GitHub PRs. And I would like to have better integration with Azure, and it would be like spin up your MAUI backend services, and all of a sudden you'd have this API and your app would just magically talk to it, and everything would be super cool. I don't know. I don't know if that's important. Again, you have to tell me these things. I would like to make the DevBox experience better. Anyone familiar with DevBox yet? A couple people. It's just Gerald, Daniel. Thank you guys. Thanks for paying attention. Um, DevBox is our like fancy cloud hosted VM that you can basically create an image and then just be like, start a DevBox, and then you open it and it's got all the things you need, all the Visual Studios and bits and whatever. So the idea is if you're onboarding someone and you have to like provision their device before they can start doing things, you can just give them a DevBox to use until that's all ready. Or you could just use the DevBox yourself if you're traveling, if you're not on your main machine. You can demo from it. It's very cool. And then Google has just someone told me that Google did make emulators that run natively on ARM. I know this for Mac. I have yet to find this working on Windows. So I would like to petition Google, if anyone has an in, to make the stuff that I need to work, please. So that would be great. Let me know if any of you are magical. We would also love to see VS Code support. We are already adding .NET support into Visual Studio Code. You might have seen the announcement about that over the summer. We want to see what we can do in VS Code to make mobile development easier. Obviously, VS Code is a lightweight code editor. It is not Visual Studio. It is not the full airplane cockpit. So you're not going to get live preview or live visual tree, all those kind of things that pop up on the sides of VS. But we could give you hot reload, right? We could give you code completion. Excuse me. So if you want those things, you think that'd be useful, let me know. And that is it. And I actually finished with a reasonable amount of time for questions. So can I do questions? Is that allowed? Okay. And then someone will have to feed me the online ones. And then I will give Sam about 10 minutes to get his stuff set up. So at 9:50-ish, Jimmy, if you could cut me off and play your fancy music or whatever you want to do. Oh, there is not right now. Which camera am I looking at? Does it matter?
Which camera?
Which camera do you want me to look at?
That one?
That one? There's not right now, and for that I am sorry. However, we are trying to figure out what the best thing to do is in terms of UI creation. There's a whole bunch of different reasons people use a designer, and one of those is just to get the layout ready to roll. We think we can do that for you pretty easily. We also think we can use some like GitHub Copilot stuff, which would be cool. Or I don't know, the chat thing, Chat GPT. What about like, I just want a page with a grid and 3 buttons and it looks like a login screen, and then we just do that for you? That would be very cool.
That would be cool.
So cool.
Okay, we have another question about MAUI components. Tree view components was asked many times, but with no results. Please clarify MAUI component strategy.
Do you have anything you'd like to say, Dave? We are building the ones that we think are going to be the most impactful, covering the most people right now. Tree view is, yeah, good answer. Good answer. Tree view is very important. Oh, the answer, I'm gonna lead up to it. Don't worry. That being said, we can't do everything. So, what Dave suggested, and what I always love to suggest, is using some of our amazing control vendors for those more complicated controls. Tree views, data grids, especially desktop specific stuff that you really need. So, progress. Sam is sitting right behind the camera. Hi, Sam. Thank you. Sam worked for Progress, and they have a whole set of amazing MAUI controls. There's also Sync Fusion, Dev Express, so many others. Once I finish my tea, I can list an infinite amount on the internet. But for now, yeah. So check those out.
Nice. So, question that might be discussed later on. Are there any plans to bring back the XAML live preview like the one we had before Xamarin? Hot reload doesn't really do the trick.
I think that's also about something like a designer. We had the XAML previewer thing with Xamarin that showed you your UI, but it was not interactable, and it was at design time. So we split it into design time, which is when your app isn't running, runtime when your app is running. We have been thinking about what we can do at design time. The reason we got rid of the XAML previewer in lieu of live preview is because we never did the right thing. We never showed your UI right, and it just caused more problems than it was worth. But we have heard loud and clear, not just obviously from this, but from many customers, that something at design time is still definitely necessary. So we've been looking at it. No solid plans to share. As you can see, we've been doing a bunch of stuff. But I hear you loud and clear, and I would love to solve that problem somehow in the near future.
Cool. We're looking forward to that.
Yeah.
No pressure.
No, thanks.
Okay. Is there any plans to include Linux into the cross-platform supported?
Great question. Wow, online, man, they're coming. They're grilling. When we did this only in person in Cologne, everyone was like, "That was really cool. Thank you. Here's a really easy softball question." Online, you guys are like, "It's because I can't see you." I get it. Yeah, so Linux, two parts to the story. One is I want to use my Linux machine to write my MAUI apps. That is possible. You can use VS Code, command line stuff, and Android emulators on Linux right now. Just go ahead and do it. The other thing is if you want to develop MAUI apps for Linux. We have heard this from a lot of customers, and then every time we've been like, show us what, like, tell us what kind of app you want to build for Linux that you need for Linux or whatever. They have not actually shown us things. So we would love to get these stories because it makes it easier for us to go and argue with the people who tell people what to work on. Because believe it or not, I actually have no power as much as I pretend to. It makes that argument easier for us. What we would like to do for Linux at some point is either enable, using something like Avalonia UI, which already targets Linux, being able to use drawn controls instead of the actual native control toolkit, which is what we use in MAUI right now. That would kind of be the dream. There are some people who do it out there. There's actually a fork right now of MAUI that supports Linux. So there's definitely interest, people doing it. And I would recommend checking those out. As far as actual committed roadmap things, there's nothing right now. That doesn't mean it's never going to happen. We're just planning for .NET 8 this current time period. So, yeah.
Ready for more?
Okay.
Yeah.
Whew.
Can we expect some increased efforts concerning MAUI issues over the next week?
Yes, we can. Actually, I have a good answer for this one. We have taken people from other parts of .NET and tooling, and we have created this like MAUI quality committee that is just kicking off. They actually had a meeting that we all missed. Gerald should have been there, but he couldn't because he was talking at this conference or whatever this week, called "Who Wants to Be a MAUI Contributor?" And they onboarded a bunch of people elsewhere in .NET into how to contribute to MAUI, and they've prioritized issues. They've had people go in and validate those things. So we have a huge push. Our sprints are every month, so February and maybe March as well, for like explicitly MAUI quality improvements. We are making sure that we can get people to work on these things and contribute. We're also going to make it easier for all of you to contribute by learning from what we do to onboard the team and hopefully publishing those things. I saw one live stream already went out from Javier or video or something. So yeah. Yes. Yes. Good answer.
Fantastic. Do we have any questions from this IRL place we're actually at the venue? Yes, we do.
Regarding ARM support, is it possible or will it be possible to run on Raspberry Pis?
Ooh, good question. I mean, I think there's a Windows build for Raspberry Pi, so yes, because Windows and ARM. So yes, but don't quote me on that. I think so.
We think so.
We think so. Good answer.
Do we have any more questions?
Nobody wants to grill me. Nobody wants to be like, "Why does MAUI suck so bad?" or something. Is that just for online? No, I'm kidding. MAUI's amazing.
No, they're nice.
Oh, yeah, right here.
Yeah, we have a question.
Why bring the telemetry into App Center instead of Application Insights?
That is what I want to do. Thank you for asking that question. You should send me that in an email so I can forward it to everyone in leadership and say, why are we doing all this in App Center when it should just be in App Insights? Because that's where everyone's back end is anyways. The plan, I believe, and this is not in writing yet, but the last I talked to the App Center PM, is to have like a magic thing that you can use App Center if that's all you need. But really the end goal is that it's all in App Insights in real time. Obviously, to get in an App Insights right now, you'd have to rewrite all your App Center analytics code, which would be annoying. So we need to do some kind of wrapper there, magic, whatever. But yes, thank you for asking. Good question.
Any more questions?
Cool.
No, I
All
think
right.
we're done.
Awesome. Well, thank you,
you so
everybody.
much.
I will be around here until the end of Sam's talk, so feel free to say hi. This is my email, Maddy at Microsoft. Definitely hit me up with questions, comments, concerns, things you want us to work on, and enjoy the rest of your .NET front end day.
Thank you. And in just a minute, we will have Sam joining us on stage.